Welcome in everybody to the TK Pod. My name is Tyler Kluver. I was once a Division 1 football player. I am now a podcaster, fitness coach, and CrossFit athlete, doing all of that as a husband and father of two. This show is an audio journal, a spot for me to vent or ramble about thoughts I have relating to fitness and health, my personal competitive aspirations, business, entrepreneurship, and more. I hope that each show can provide one small bit of value for you, the listener. Regardless, I'm glad you're here. Let's have a day. Let's go. Another edition of the TK Pod is here. I hope everybody's 2026 has started off fruitful for you. What a dumb word. Fruitful. I hope you guys are having success. We're already 2 weeks in, right? And at around here on this podcast, that is based on fitness, health, my personal training endeavors, competitive fitness goals, business goals, life. Um, that's sort of a big deal, right? Like, how has it? If you ask everybody on Earth right now, it's like, yeah, we just started the new year, and 2 weeks are already gone. There's only 52 of them. Shit happens fast, and as a parent, I think it happens even faster. Obviously, that time isn't actually ticking faster, but you are caught up and focused on so many different things just from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed. There's so many responsibilities that you have as an adult. It's so weird to say, really, as an adult with. I mean, I'm not sure what else, like, what other areas of responsibility I could really grab. Um, there are obviously people on Earth with more responsibility than me, but I've sort of checked off all the boxes at this point. In 2026, I am a husband. I'm a father of two. I run one major business and sort of dabble with two others. I own a house. We own several other things, cars, etc. It's, I'll be 32 years old this year, and those are sort of the big boxes in life, right? Your career, your family. I remember when, and this is how my brain works, used to work. I think it's evolved a little bit, which is good. Change is good, and it's good that you grow up and hopefully get better at processing things. But my brain in college 10 years ago, right? The year is 2016, and I am in my fourth year of college at Iowa. And I pretty much grouped things, responsibilities, things that I had to worry about into three baskets. There was personal, there was football, and there was school. And to be real honest, there wasn't a lot, there wasn't much more than that. School basically consisted of, okay, the subcategories are the 4 or 5 classes that I'm in at a time. And then beneath that, it was what homework you have to do, what chapter or lecture you have to study or whatever. It didn't get much more complicated than that. On the football side of things, it was basically like just football was so streamlined that it was just show up and do the work that you're asked to. And then in the personal side, like the personal was so simple. It was essentially, I've got couple $1,000s in my bank account, which was really good for a college kid. I've got a moped that I have to take care of. I have a car that technically my parents own. I've got a girlfriend that I get to see once a month. There was just like very limited things. I didn't have to worry about a mortgage. I had a rent payment, but that was automated and I didn't spend enough money outside. There was no groceries to buy really. We ate at the complex. Like life was so simple. There was no kids to worry about, no appointments to for them to go to. I wasn't worried I wasn't worried about anything. And 10 years later, all of that is different. And you kind of add one more responsibility at a time, yada da 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 da, until you get to this point where you're like, holy shit, there's a lot of things to kind of juggle here in life. And it's fun. It's awesome. It's great. Wouldn't want it any other way. It is just funny to compare and contrast. Um, and I don't even know where I was going with that. That's more of a reflection for 6 minutes to open up the podcast. There are several other um I guess the point of that was I hope you're starting a new year off right. I hope you're taking advantage and not taking for granted your time that you have with your family, your kids, whatever. And that through 2 weeks, you're already progressing um, at the right pace towards any of the goals that you have. I would say in my life, I am. You always feel a little bit like you could be doing better, I think, if you're a certain kind of person, most people. But all of the things that I want for family, career, income, just hobbies, my fitness, all of that seems to be trending upward in the right direction at the right speed right now. So I feel great. It's a great time to be alive. I love life. Uh, there are, which is sort of a ironic way to wrap that piece up because there is a heavier topic on today's rundown of random topics. We'll just jump to that one real quick. I I keep saying, "Oh, I'm 31. I'm gonna be 32 this year." Like people aren't older than me, but it just kind of sets the table for perspective. Into the 30s now, into your fourth decade of life, you start to find yourself in this really weird spot where, and I guess it could be much sooner. But if you're lucky, you start to find yourself in this weird spot where, to put it pretty brashly, people start to die. Not just people that you know of or people that are public figures that are, that because they're famous or whatever, but like parents of people that you grew up with, maybe your parents, depending on their health status. Um, I have a lot of friends that are my age that I graduated high school with and grew up with, whose parents are in their 60s, in the mid 60s, which means their grandparents, who many people are close to, are in their 80s or 90s. A lot of people, most people my age, have lost a grandparent. And Lauren and myself are very fortunate on that front. We've only lost one grandparent out of 8. And um is that right? We've lost 2 2 grandparents out of 8, both, yeah. And but I know some people who have lost their parents. And more than that, there's some people that are my age who are starting to run into um sickness, disease, tragedy, mental health stuff, uh, which is really weird. It's really weird. You grow up and you're insulated to the reality and effects of mortality. You're just a kid living life, and you're not thinking about that. There's no reason to, and that's good. Some, unfortunately, again, with tragedy or cancer, disease, they do have to face that, but, for the most part, when you're a kid up through, your high school years, you're not really thinking about or really confronted with death in a lot of ways. This all stems from last week, Lauren and I had a high school classmate, girl that Lauren played softball and volleyball with up through for a decade plus as we grew up, part of her friend group. Um, Her dad committed suicide. Very, very weird. And it makes me a little bit emotional, not for, and this sounds bad, but not necessarily for, I didn't, I knew him. I interacted with the guy multiple times. He was around. Um, Unbelievable dude, great guy. And it's obviously sad for her and that family, and that's horrible. But as someone who, again, you just don't interact with a lot of that stuff, and especially when it's, it was a mental health thing and someone ends up taking their own life, it makes you sort of, it makes you question. First of all, it makes you question, damn, do you really know people? Like, do you really know what people are going through? Obviously, sometimes you don't. And I guess it makes me feel like grateful because I cannot imagine. I cannot imagine taking my own life or even being in a spot where that would make sense. Yet, so many people, I mean, suicide is a massive issue. It is not a rare thing. People are taking their life at extremely unfortunate rates. And this one was weird because it was a guy in his 60s, you know? Theoretically, he had run the race. I think the highest demographic for suicide is young men, and there's a lot of reasons for that that we could probably go into for an hour by itself. But to see someone who has had children, had a job, been involved, they've lived their life. I'm pretty sure he has grandchildren. I think so. Uh, uh, Theoretically, like right around that retirement age, like you've done it. You did it. Right? Like, I think the assumption a lot of times is, "Oh, this 26-year-old man committed suicide. He didn't have a lot in life. He was struggling to find his way. He couldn't find a career. He couldn't find healthy relation." Like, this guy had all of that. He had the career. He's worked for 40 plus years, been involved in his community, had 3 kids, a long lasting marriage with his wife. That's when you're supposed to be done. That's when you're supposed to hang up all the issues, hang up the work, relax, kick back, enjoy the next, hopefully 20-ish plus years of your life. And then someone like that takes their own life and decides to end it. That is just it's again, and as you can hear, like it's a little bit just jarring and my mind can't really comprehend it, which then makes me feel like, wow, what a life I get to live. And sometimes this is a visceral thing for me on the positive end of the spectrum where sometimes life is so good, and I hope that everybody gets to experience something like this. Sometimes life is so good that I get sad that it just has to that I will die someday, you know? I'm 31 years old. If health and modern medicine and luck are all on my side, I've lived about a third of my life, and it makes me sad as fuck that I've already lived a third of my life. And I hope people I it's like a first world problem to have. Like, damn, I only get to live 90 years if things go perfectly. Because life is so good right now that I want this forever. It's a weird thing to think about, mortality and lifespan, and just it's weird. And if you do it emotionally, it gets even weirder. So, we'll hang it up there, but just a perspective shift kind of realization thing that happened last week when that went down, that just it's odd. Makes you think. On a lighter note, segue right into something different. Kinda going back to the business goals and everything being on track to start 2026. Basically my one goal for this, for the background behind me, for the 3 people that end up watching the podcast. Um, for those listening, I guess I should just describe the Washed Up Walk-Ons, like, backdrop sits behind me on these videos versions. Um, and that really is that's the main thing. For a lot of years there, since 2019, I have tried to basically juggle being a fitness guy and being a media guy. Um, and there were a couple years, I think probably 2 years, where that was, like, really even. Like, people would ask, "Hey, what do you do?" And I would tell them, I make about 50% of my money from fitness, and I make about 50% of my money from, the podcast, the Wash Up Walk-Ons, the media company." And then it started to shift more towards the media company, which is a good thing, that was because the media company was growing. It was outgrowing the fitness side of things. And responsibilities within those 2 roles of trying to be a fitness coach and have fitness clients and run challenges and, program for people and work on their nutrition, and then completely just dropping that or flipping the script, and the next hour of my day going to, I'm recording a podcast, I'm trying to get this guest on, I'm trying to create clips, I'm trying to, research and outline for the next show, I'm trying to, create social media posts and build a brand and extra content. Uh, I think for me at least, and I know some people can do this, for me at least, being I'm obviously the sole guy behind my own fitness brand, and I'm 98% of the work on the podcast side. Having every hat and every role within both of those 2 income sources became too much to do either of them at an elite level. And over the past 2 years, I would say, as that gap between how much money I make with the podcast, media stuff, and how much money I make on the fitness side of things has continued to widen. It's gotten to the point where, um, both financially and motivation wise, it kind of has just seemed like it makes the most sense to almost just put the fitness stuff aside and just go full in on the media brand. And so in 2026, that is essentially what I'm doing. The best way to describe it is I am fully embracing podcaster as my career. It is a little bit more than that. I do think if somebody asks professionally, um, a more encompassing way to describe it would be I own a media company, but I haven't really done that from a mindset standpoint up until just a couple weeks ago when I decided to kind of make that shift. And I think that doing that will help me. It's, kind of the whole you can't, um if you're half-assing multiple things, you're never whole-assing some one thing, and I want to whole-ass that's just a horrible. I wanna go 100% on the podcast and the media stuff, and I don't want another, enjoyable venture to kind of make me lazy and complacent at both things, trying to make both work at a high level when, for me at least, I think I can only do one. And so that's what we're doing. And to follow that, that means with the media company taking priority, the primary driver of income through a media company, at least in this sense, is advertising and sponsorship, right? That is the basis of owning a media company or a podcast is you provide a platform, a a product of that people consume with their attention, and because of that attention, brands and businesses and companies are interested in capitalizing on it. They then pay you. They subsidize your production, um, with the promise of, "Hey, we'll talk about your brand or your product or your company for a couple minutes during the show." Right? That is how we make money primarily. So, stabilizing that arm of the business, and when I say stabilizing, I mean creating more consistency, uh, reaching a higher potential, um, and a higher floor, creating new relationships, and just kind of getting 1% better in all facets of that part of the business is the number one goal, right? Because if I'm constantly struggling and just getting lucky and hoping to get sponsorships and advertisements for the show, it's stressful on me. And even when I end up doing it, I'm not nearly maximizing the potential of what the show actually could earn dollar wise. So, couple partners have reached out in the last 6 months, and potential partners in the form of like marketing agencies, marketing firms, um, people who sell advertising and sponsorship for a living. And I have a decent sized meeting with somebody tomorrow as I record this that could open up the door for more possibilities. And we're actually at the point now where I've already had a conversation like that about 6 months ago with another company, another marketing firm, agency thing place. And so now there's almost like a competition for us, for our business, which is always a good thing. Higher demand, low supply, high demand. Um, means the price goes up, and that is good for us. And on a unnecessary but fun note for me, my main goal with stabilizing that and, hopefully increasing revenue to a point where my personal income jumps a significant amount because of that. Um, Creates a lot less stress in my life, considering the mortgage and daycare payments that I have right now. Um, and even over the top of that allows us, as a family to relax and take some vacations and have fun and a little bit more fun in life, which is always the goal, right? Trying to improve and get better. So that is where we're at with the business goals and objectives heading into the new year. And then finally, as I record this, we are 2 weeks and 1 day away from the qualifier window opening for the first four Monster Games, which for the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who listen to the show over the past month, that the first form Monster Games in Kansas City or Overland Park, Kansas, I think, later this summer in late July is the one competition that I'm focusing on this year. It is again ideally, if things go to plan, will be the first individual competition that I travel to and do in the realm of CrossFit. Everything else I've ever done was team, outside of just competing in the open in the game season. Um, and that's a really exciting opportunity for me. And then, of course, I went into detail on this a couple podcasts ago, but I think um, this is a competition of which I might be able to actually qualify in the elite division, the top division of individuals, which would add an extra cherry on top of like, wow, I've risen to a point where I can do a regional size competition. And regional namesake being very close to like the old regional level of CrossFit season wise. I can do that style of competition and be up there and, throw down with the best, some of the best of the best. Not the elites, the pros, but the next level of competitors across the country. I'm in that range. Um, we'll see if I am or not. Last week I had a neck injury that was bothering me, and that has pretty much subsided completely. I'm very happy about that. And I didn't even get to go to PT last week. So the body is feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty fit right now. I'd have to look or kind of do some deeper thinking on where I've been in the past couple years. The last 2 years really have been some good levels of fitness around this time of year. Um, am I fitter than those two? Am I fitter right now in 2026 January, mid January than I was in mid 2025 January or mid January 2024? I think I am. I think overall I actually am. Um, across all movements and things that you're asked to do in CrossFit, I think I am. So that's exciting, especially knowing that we basically have, a month and a half to continue preparing for the open, continue getting better, and working on, our ability. So, I almost have to consider, looking at what a taper week looks like now or a couple taper days so that the body feels good going into that qualifier window. There's gonna be 5 workouts probably. Um, that bit of a unique one. Some competitions do this, but, um, I will have 2.5 weeks. I mean, that's over half a month to do this qualifier, which kinda throws a wrench in things because it's basically saying, like, it opens the window for you to beat your face into the ground. You could do every single one of these qualifiers 3 times. Um, and if that's your goal is to do as best as you can, then you're probably like the best use of your time is to redo them and try and get better scores and like do as good as you can, right? And so that is going to be interesting how I go about that. Because you have to be smart. You have to take care of your body. You can't just completely abandon like your normal training regimen. You can't just for 3 weeks, almost 3 weeks, say, well, now I'm only doing these 5 qualifier workouts. Like, you kinda have to keep lifting and doing some other like, so we'll figure out how that goes, but I am excited. I feel very good, and the goal remains the goal, to qualify in the elite individual category there, and if I'm not elite, it's a this is a product of trying to qualify as high as I possibly can and going all in on this. Hopefully, I qualify as, the top or one of the top RX individuals to where I can then go and maybe win the RX division in, in July. I mean, that would be pretty cool. So, that's all coming up. Uh, almost a half hour podcast today. Pretty wild. We're in the middle of winter. Over here on my other screen, I'm looking at my like, rundown categories that I usually throw things into, and disc golf update is always the last one. The disc golf update right now would be, it's been months since I played, probably 2 or 3 months. And you start to build that itch, and before you know it, the pro season starts up again, all those events and the pro series start, and that I think that starts in like February, like in out in Arizona. And so, March, there's some days in March where it's not too wet. There's no snow on the ground. It gets up to like, 40s, 50s. You could go out and play. There's been a couple days, probably here in January without snow that you could potentially go play some disc golf. So, um, we're only 4 to 8 weeks away from that range too, which is exciting. Again, hope you're having a great 2026 and a great week, and we will talk next time. Peace.